You know, I've been getting kind of bored with the standard way of playing Pyro. The typical ignite, air blast, and shoot, or WM1 is getting old for me. Sure, it's great to absolutely on whatever poor soul decides to get close to you, but I'd need a new way to play Pyro. But how do I find a new way to play him? Ah, a subclass. Let's see what subclasses have been discovered already. We have Pyro Shark, which is a subclass solely based around one weapon, the Neon Annihilator. You first have to get your target wet in order for Pyro Shark to perform optimally. Whether it be by pee or something like milk, it's always easiest to take advantage of your guaranteed crit while in a body of water. Those other two things require friends to help and skill, none of which I have. But with water, all you need is, well, nothing really. You just wait patiently in the water for some dude to walk by, and that's when you pounce on them.
Help! Help me!
But if you're anything like me, you're a pretty impatient guy. You don't have time to wait for people to get in the water with you. What I like to do is shoot a shotgun at them until they either jump in the water with me or they start chasing me. And it works out pretty well. You'll mostly see Pyro Sharks on maps with large bodies of water, or really any body of water at best, like 2-Fort. This is definitely the least popular subclass I'll be talking about today because of how specific the circumstances have to be. I mean, you have to be in a pretty sizable body of water, hope that you take the person by surprise, and then you can finally play Pyro Shark. And when it works, it's pretty satisfying. The next subclass is a fan favorite. Heck, I don't even need to say the name, 90% of you guys already know who I'm talking about. The Pyro subclass revolves around two things, the Homewrecker and the Engineer. The Homewrecker sacrifices its offensive capabilities in order to gain a stronger defensive utility, removing sappers, and twice as fast as a regular Engineer, might I add. So, we have a primary that is able to protect an Engineer's nest from any kind of projectile, French people, and their French machinery. We also have a melee that completely shuts down the sapper if they get a chance to put on a building. What I'm saying is that given our special loadout as a Pyro, we become best friends with the Engineer machines. While he does his engineering things, you babysit his buildings in order to increase their longevity. Although it's probably the most helpful subclass in the game currently, it's definitely the most boring. Like, sitting in traffic kind of boring. But if you're able to sacrifice the fun of a more mobile playstyle in order to lend a very big hand to your fellow Engies, I have a very large amount of respect toward you. And finally, we arrive at the newest subclass idea, a mobile, melee-based class that thrives off taking their targets by surprise.
Demo Man?
No, it's not Demo Knight, it's Pyro Knight. This subclass is a Demo Knight version for Pyro, if it wasn't obvious. I've had so much fun experimenting with this class, finding my counters, the classes I counter, but most importantly, the best loadouts to use. Speaking of the best loadouts to use, if you decide to try out this subclass, the ideal loadout you should be using is this. In your primary slot, well, it doesn't really matter, as the only reason you'll be using your flamethrower is to extinguish your teammate. So, the stock flamethrower or degreaser works well, but it mainly comes down to preference. Now for your secondary slot. This is the equivalent to your shield charge, the thing that closes the distance between you and your target. So it makes sense to pick the thermal thruster, right? It gives the best mobility of all Pyro secondaries, and allow you to potentially one-shot some of the beefier classes with its man-tread stat. But something I've realized while playing around with this subclass is that the thermal thruster isn't always the most useful in every situation. Like when you're indoors, I bonked my head so many times I think I'm blacking out. So if your head hurts, I suggest substituting the detonator. I personally prefer the detonator in most situations, so I can travel, albeit shorter distances, but at greater speeds. The thermal thruster also limits you to 2 charges, making you have to be very careful with your jumps. But with the detonator, you sacrifice about 20 to 30 health in order to send yourself barreling towards your target. Sure, the thermal thruster is better at sending you further distances, but I'm not trying to travel an entire football field to reach my destination. I can get there fast, kill, and get out fast. And finally, for your melee, use the back scratcher. It's the perfect weapon of choice for a roaming Pyro Knight. It does the most raw damage at 81 and a crit damage of 244 without requiring someone to be on fire in order to deal some serious damage. It also gives you a health kit bonus, which is perfect when you're roaming around the map without a medic following you. And I don't know if it's just me, but this thing random crits like crazy. But what do you guys think of this subclass? Do you think it's a pretty cool concept or a stupid idea? Also, I would like to point out that the idea of this subclass is not all mine. I mainly drew the idea of Pyro Knight from this video. So if you want to see some good gameplay of Pyro Knight, I would go watch that video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.